Hey everybody, happy Wednesday morning. Welcome to the 28th annual People First of West Virginia Self-Advocacy Contest, Cooking Class Pandemic Version 2. It's nice to have you back in my kitchen. I wish we were all together again, but we can't do it again this year, maybe next year. I'm hoping 2022 can have us all together at Jackson's Mill. That would be awesome. But we're going to do it this way instead. And if you want to follow along, this is what came in your packet. It's the recipes for the cooking class. And if you've looked them over, you might think, wow, Dede's lost her mind. She's got all this stuff with cabbage in it. And if you're not a cabbage fan, you may not have been real happy about that, but please stick with me because all the recipes that we're going to go over actually have converted people I know who said they didn't like cabbage to liking cabbage. And I think that you'll be kind of surprised about these. And it's a simple thing that we're going to use. What to do with a bag of coleslaw mix. So most of you probably have seen these in the supermarket. Maybe you don't get them because you don't know what to do with them. Or maybe you just don't like coleslaw in general with the mayonnaise and all that. Or you just don't want to make it for yourself. But this is a pretty economical way and a lot easier work-wise to get some cabbage that's all cut up and shredded. This particular one says tricolor, and it's got the white cabbage, or green, and purple, and a little bit of carrot. This is what we're going to use for our recipes, and we're going to do 3 different things with these. 2 recipes we're going to go over, and 1 that we're going to just check out. If you get the first recipe we're going to work on, it is the egg roll in a bowl, and it's on the 2nd page, in the whole page recipe. Now this egg roll in a bowl, if you like Chinese food, or if maybe you don't like Chinese food in general, but egg rolls you may like a lot because they're just really yummy and different. So this recipe is something that has all the flavors and the goodies of egg rolls, but you get a whole lot more of the filling, which I think is kind of the favorite part. But you don't have to give up the crunchy outside either. So if you follow along the recipe, the first thing under the instructions is to prepare these egg roll chips. Now that kind of sounds crazy, but this is what we're going to make, and I made some in advance. And it's really better to make them in advance because that way you can eat as soon as you're done with your other mixture. And you can hear how nice and crispy these are. Now these I made in the air fryer, and you may be able to see behind me back there, the black little appliance sitting on my counter. That's an air fryer. If you have one, they're really great and they're really handy, and you can make these in a matter of like 2 to 3 minutes tops. I literally just cut these in strips. I'm going to show you how they come, and then I put them in the air fryer, do about 1 minute at 400 degrees, shake the basket, do it again for a minute, and that's it. However, I also included on the recipe the instructions for you to do it in the oven. And you can do that really easily, and your chips will come out similar to this, where they'll be more flat. They might even bubble up a little bit and separate the layers. In the air fryer, they kind of do some crazy stuff like this because they blow around while they're cooking. And some of them are just plain crazy. But they're fun, and they have the crunchy flavor of the outside of the egg roll. Now, hang on, let me hit the fridge and show you what the wrappers look like. So, these come in a package at the grocery store. They're refrigerated, so they're often in the produce section. This is one brand, Frida's egg roll wrappers. You can also use wonton wrappers that are very similar, but they're just a little smaller, like that size. Works fine. Another kind I have here, and well, I'm just having a hard time today. Another kind I have here is Nasoya, which is a vegan version. It just happened to be the ones I picked up, and this is what I use today. They're a nice pack of squares. And when you take them out, It's kind of like thin sheets of pie dough is what it would remind you of. So you see, you can almost see through them. These are all stacked together, and what I usually do is take 2 or 3 or 4 and lay them on a cutting board, squared up together, and then I cut them with a knife or with scissors into strips. That's all you have to do. If you do them on a cookie sheet in the oven, you might want to spray a little bit of oil or Pam on them, and that helps. But they're super easy to make, and they're basically fat-free. Unless you spray a little oil on them, it's still a very negligible amount. So we have our chips ready, nice and crunchy. So the next thing we're going to do is we have meat, ground meat. In this case, I'm using ground chicken. Now you can use ground turkey, ground chicken, and some people like to use traditional ground pork egg rolls. Also, another thing you can do, if you're a big shrimp fan, you can use baby shrimp, even the kind that comes in a can and drained, and you can throw those in, and that can be the meat, or they can be in addition to the ground meat that you're using. But I usually use ground chicken. And I've been kind of substituting ground chicken and ground turkey for a lot of other things, and I've actually dropped some weight in the last several months by making those substitutions. But actually, we kind of like it anyway. Don't really notice the difference using ground chicken or ground turkey. And as far as cabbage goes, by the way, my granddaughter, who's 11, wouldn't touch a vegetable that's in this dish, no way, if we've had it separately. And the first time I made egg roll in a bowl a few months ago for myself, she smelled those wonderful Asian scents coming around and up the steps, and came and asked me what I was making, and I told her, and I had made something different for her for dinner, but I really wanted to try this recipe myself. And she said, "Can I have some?" And I said, "Well, sure, of course you can." Well, since then, every time I make this, she eats half at least of what I make or more herself. She loves this dish. So she probably wouldn't touch cabbage in any other form if I offered it to her, but she loves this. So stick with me. It's a really good recipe. So the directions say to brown the meat, or cook it at least till the pink is gone, and then drain it. But as you can see, this chicken is so lean that I don't need to drain it. So that step I can skip. Now you can find ground chicken and ground turkey in the same place that you find any other meats at the grocery store. Usually the turkey is right next to the chicken. All the poultry is usually together. Ground pork you can find in the pork section. And now that I'm finding that almost every grocery store has all these selections, besides just ground beef. You can find these as well, and it's getting easier. I tend to buy a lot of mine at Aldi's, but I'm finding that other stores have it also. So if you look at our directions, the next thing is we're going to add onion, which is sliced, sesame oil, and a little tiny bit of vinegar to the skillet, and we're going to cook that until the onions get a little bit tender. So we're going to do the one onion, and I've already sliced it. You can do diced if you want, and I think I have sliced thinly or diced on the recipe. All I did was slice a really nice onion and put it in a little container ahead of time and left it in there. So we're going to put that in. And by the way, I am using my handy dandy meat chopper. If you remember, we talked about this last year when we were making chili, and it looks a little messy, but this thing is wonderful, and I use it all the time, and I use it for this recipe. So stir that around a little. I'm going to turn my heat up just a tad. And then we're going to do the sesame oil. Now, sesame oil is something that you probably may not have in your home. I have to tell you that it's probably one of my favorite things. Anytime I want to do anything that's Asian, it smells and tastes wonderful. A small bottle like this, I believe, is $3, I believe. I got this at Walmart. We've been quarantined at my house, so I actually did a Walmart delivery, and I was able to get all the things we needed for cooking class delivered from Walmart. And I'm really glad because I wasn't able to go out. So this sesame oil, you can also get toasted sesame oil, which has a little deeper flavor. But this will last you a long time. You don't use very much in most dishes, spoonful or two at the most. Our recipe calls for 1 tablespoon. And I really wish that you could smell this because it's just got the best, like a nutty smell, kind of, I would say. It's kind of hard to describe if you haven't experienced it. So we'll stir that around. And then we have a tablespoon of vinegar. And that just kind of helps deepen the flavors. It's not much. This vinegar happens to be Bragg's organic vinegar. You can use regular vinegar. This just happened to be what Walmart had because it's pickling season and they were out of regular vinegar. So they substituted the organic vinegar. And we're just going to put a tablespoon of that in the pot. But like I said, any vinegar will work. White vinegar will work. Apple cider vinegar, whatever. This just happens to be something that I got sent. So we're going to stir that all around. And let that cook a little bit until the onions tenderize just a little. Another thing then that we're going to do is we have garlic that's going to go in. Fresh garlic is great. You can peel the garlic and chop it if you like to. You can also do this, which is much simpler and easier. It's minced garlic you buy from the store. You can get it packed in water. You can get it packed in oil. I usually get it packed in water because if I'm using it, I don't always want oil with it in the dish that I'm using. And sometimes I do, so I can add the oil. But this is very simple, and you don't have to keep fresh garlic on hand and worry about how to crush it or mince it or whatever. So that's one thing we're going to put in shortly. And actually, we'll just go ahead and mix up the next amount of little kind of dressing that goes with it. So if you check it out here, we've got garlic, ginger, soy sauce, and some sugar. And on step 3, we're going to mix those all together so we can put them in the pot once these onions get tender. So we got 2 teaspoons minced garlic. It's going to go in here. And I like garlic. So if it's a little above the spoon, I don't mind. And if you guys like garlic, let me know. Just curious who all the garlic lovers are out there. Then we're going to do 1 teaspoon of ground ginger or ginger paste. Now this is another thing you may not have on hand, but once you find a dish like this you like, you want to get it and it'll last you a long time. There's a couple of choices. And I don't know, this is probably in reverse on the screen. This is ground ginger. This was very inexpensive. It came from Walmart also, of course. But I also like to use this ginger paste. It costs just a tad bit more. But the neat thing is this is like a fresh ginger that's all smushed up and it has a really good flavor. But honestly, in the end of the dish, it doesn't really matter what you use. So today, since I have the ginger paste, we're going to go ahead and put a teaspoon of that in, which is what the recipe calls for. And ginger is just a wonderful flavor, and I believe it really has a lot to do with what gives dishes an Asian flavor. And I wish we had smell-o-vision because this smells so good. So we're going to put that in the bowl. I'm just mixing this all into a bowl. Then we're going to do a 1/4 cup of lower sodium soy sauce. Now, unfortunately, when I ordered the soy sauce from Walmart, they were out of low sodium. More people are buying low sodium products these days. It's not unusual to find them out when the regular ones are on the shelf. So we're going to use regular today. I also want to show you though, something I use at my house. There's alternatives such as this Bragg liquid aminos. This tastes So good. It's a soy sauce flavor, and I am able to use a little less because it's so intensely flavored, which saves me a little bit of sodium in my diet. But you can use plain old soy sauce, and this is like $1 a bottle. This is $5. So we're going to take the soy sauce, measure 1/4 cup. And then we're going to put that in with our garlic and ginger in the little bowl. And then the last thing that we need, let me give them a pot of star here. Oh, it smells good in here. We don't even have all the goodies in yet. The next thing we need is a teaspoon of sugar. Now you can easily use Splenda. If you need to cut out the sugar in your diet, you can use a little less in here. It doesn't really make it sweet. It just enhances the other flavors. Little sugar jar. All right. So, if you can see, I'm just going to mix all this up. All those little pieces are the garlic, and the little clumps are the ginger, because I used the paste. And this smells so good. This smells like something that you'd want to dip wontons in, or even egg rolls, just on its own. So you just mix that up a little bit. Then, if you follow along in step 3, I'm actually making sure that I'm telling you correctly. So, in step 3, we're going to dump this in. Make sure we get everything out of the bowl. Stir that around. And then, the only vegetable prep we have to do is open the bag. I have a pair of kitchen scissors. I don't know if you guys have them. These are not expensive either. Actually, I think you can find them at Dollar Tree now. I use them all kinds of things. These are strong enough that I can cut up raw chicken, you know, or I can just cut open plastic bags like this. So I'm just going to cut the top of the bag off. And there's our coleslaw mix. And we're going to dump it in. Seems like we're always doing dump recipes, huh? I'm going to stir that around, and if you see, you start stirring the meat and onion mixture around with the coleslaw mixture, and the heat from that meat mixture you have in here starts wilting the cabbage, so it actually starts the cooking process pretty quickly. And then another thing I have on here, and this is really optional, is I have a bag of already cut matchstick carrots. You can get these at the grocery store also, already cut for you. And if you notice, they're like little strings of carrot. And this is really handy to put in all kinds of things, including like if you're making some vegetable soup. Calls for 1/2 cup, and I'm just gonna guesstimate it with my hand. And then we're going to stir those in. So actually, we're just going to keep cooking this and stirring it until everything gets wilted and it's cooked, but it's not completely cooked through. You want the vegetables, the cabbage, shreds to be a little bit still crispy, tender, kind of, not really crunchy, but have body to them. And that's a chewiness. That's what makes it, I think, so good. So we're going to let that cook a little bit and stir it. And then at the end, we're going to add a little bit of black pepper. You can also add a little more soy sauce and a little more sesame oil, either to the pot when you taste it if you want to, or you can add it to the bowl when you eat it. Either way, it doesn't really matter. It's all what you want to do. I do want to tell you though that there's some other things I like to put in, depends on the mood I'm in, I guess, but this is bean sprouts. Mung bean sprouts come in a can. La Choy is usually the brand that you find everywhere. Some stores have another brand also. But I open these and I put them in a colander, small mesh strainer, and rinse them really well and let them drain really well so that they kind of get a little dried off before I put them in. And that's a great addition to the egg roll bowl. Also, you can get bamboo shoots in a can, and they're long pieces, and I just lay them out and kind of cut them into thin strips. And this is like if I'm feeling like I want to have a lot of other things in there, make a bigger bunch of dinner. Celery is really good in here too. Clean celery and just slice it in thin slices, the stalk, and throw that in. And so you can really pack this full of vegetables, nutrients, and it's absolutely delicious. It tastes so good you don't even realize that you're eating healthy. So I'm going to keep letting this cook. And rather than you watch me stir it for 5 solid minutes, I'm going to come back, and when I do, I'm going to show you the finished product in a bowl with the chips, and then we're going to work on the next recipe. So, I'll see you in a minute. Okay, we're back. Got things cleaned up a little bit, got the egg roll bowl finished, and I wanted to show you how pretty this is. Here it is. I forgot to mention that we also add sliced green onions at the end. It's fun to keep a few extra for a little garnish. Sometimes your chips are even like scoopies. You can scoop up some of your egg roll filling. So this is your egg roll in a bowl. It's delicious. My granddaughter's already been down and gotten a huge bowl full when I was taking a break, getting ready to do the next segment. Then, because she could smell it, and she was like, "Oh, is it done yet?" So this is it. Hope you try it. I really do. So on to the next recipe. And hopefully I won't knock my tower over here. The next one we're going to do is ramen noodle salad. Now, if you haven't had this, this has been around for years. If you haven't had this, you're really missing a treat. It is delicious. And again, something that people, I think, are amazed by. That's where they don't like cabbage. So one of the first things you need is some ramen noodles, 2 packs, chicken flavor, any brand, doesn't matter. And most of us are familiar with ramen noodles and know how inexpensive they are. And I'm trying to bust these up in my hands when normally I would just put them on the counter and bash them good. So however you want to do it is fine. But you want to take the packet out. And of course it's always on the bottom. It doesn't matter which way I open the package. It's always on the bottom. There's the flavor packet. You only need 1 of these for this recipe. You don't want to use 2. It'll be way too salty. So 1 of these, toss or set aside for something else, whatever. And we're only going to use 1 for the dressing. So we have the noodles broken up. And I'll keep working on these. Pardon me for a minute while I bash one. This is so much more fun. So they're partly broken up. So then, this is an easy, fast thing. So look at your recipe. There's a dressing that goes on this. And it starts partway down with the oil. Now we have oil, black pepper, apple cider vinegar, and sugar or Splenda. Little tip here. I've learned over the years the hard way. Unless you have several sets of measuring cups and want to dirty them all, check out your ingredients and see what's wet and what's dry. Measure your dry ingredients first. Reason being that once you use your cups for oil or vinegar, water, milk, whatever it is for your recipe, then they're wet. Then you can't use them for dry, because then everything dry, like sugar or whatever, will stick. So In this case, I'm going to go with the sugar first because that is the dry ingredient that needs a measuring cup. So, looking at our recipe, the very last ingredient is 1/4 cup of sugar or Splenda. And today we're going to use sugar. 1/4 cup. Then, let's go with the vinegar. And we need 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar. So again, we're going to use this Bragg's Organic because that's what I have. And if you don't have apple cider vinegar, the flavor is a little different than white vinegar, but if all you have on hand is white vinegar, just use it. It's okay. It doesn't make a huge difference in flavor. All right, now we need 3/4 of a cup of oil. And my measuring cups don't have 3/4. I've got 1, 1/2, 1/3, and 1/4. But it's not a big deal because 1/2 plus 1/4 will give me 3/4. I'm using canola oil. Some people don't care for canola oil. I like it a lot because I don't really use a lot of oil to begin with, but it's a very tasteless oil. It doesn't lend a heavy flavor like olive oil does, for example. So this is my choice for the oil that I do use. That was 1/2. Now we're going to do the 1/4. So 1/2 plus 1/4 is 3/4, so we're good to go there. And then the last thing we need is 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. Let me find my 1/2 teaspoon measuring spoon. I have my black pepper right here. This recipe I think needs the black pepper. If you're not a black pepper fan, you can leave it out. I think it really makes a difference. But that's fine if you don't want it. Now, I have a whisk. You can also put this in like a jar with a tight-fitting lid and shake it up really good if you wanted to blend it better. If you didn't want to fool with using a whisk, it's just an oil and vinegar and sugar and black pepper dressing. So you stir that all up really good. It only takes a minute. And really what you want is to make sure that the sugar gets dissolved in the dressing. That's it for the dressing. So, now all we need to do, we need a bag of coleslaw mix. Haha, there it is again, the coleslaw mix. And we need some green onions. I've got those too. Let me find my scissors. And we're going to cut our bag of coleslaw mix open. Again. Coleslaw mix. Easy peasy. Dump it in the bowl. How easy can that be? Now, I like to kind of go ahead and toss it around with the dressing. Or you could wait till you put the rest of it in. It doesn't matter. Make sure that you use a bowl that's big enough that you actually can stir this without getting it everywhere. Don't ask me how I know that can happen. So the next thing we need is green onions. I cut these ahead of time. This is a 1/4 cup of green onions sliced. Now, I didn't show you how to do that, but you basically just clean your onions and lay them out side by side, lined up on a cutting board, and then you use a sharp knife and slice them. However, if you are not comfortable using a knife, or knife skills just aren't your thing, which I totally get, a lot of people just are never really comfortable with knives in the kitchen, here's another thing you can do. Check it out. It's kitchen scissors. It's easy. Watch this. You literally just cut the onion with the scissors. It's easy, as long as you don't cut the end of your finger off with the scissors. So there's an alternative that you can use instead of slicing those tiny little onions with a knife. But I did these ahead, so we're going to dump these in. Look how pretty that is. Adds a little green with the purple and the orange. This is, and see, I'm slopping it out of the bowl. This is another thing that you could put like those matchstick carrots in from the egg roll bowl that you have left over. This is something you could do with those too. You could put them in the salad if you really like carrots. You could add more instead of just going with what's in here. And by the way, coleslaw mixes come in different ways. I purposely bought the tricolor because I love the colors. I love, especially in the salad, I like the contrast of the purple cabbage and the green cabbage and the orange of the carrots. But you also can find coleslaw mix that does not have purple cabbage and often doesn't have carrots either. And there's also one called angel hair that is a very, very fine shredded cabbage if you would prefer that. Like for this salad, you could use that instead. So there's no hard and fast rule. You can also buy a head of cabbage and slice it yourself real thin. That's what I usually do for the egg roll bowl, is I buy cabbage and then I just hand slice it because I want to put up so many other things in it that I don't really need the pre-bagged. But anyway, so the other thing we have that we can put in our salad now is a half cup of toasted sunflower seeds. But at the bottom of the recipe, if you notice, I not only mentioned that this is really good if you chill it overnight, but also that you can substitute sliced or slivered almonds. Now, I have sunflower seeds. They're in this jar because what I have came in these real small packets and I wanted to make sure and keep them fresh and keep them all together. So I dumped them in a jar that I recycled and I have them in here. But today, I want almonds in mine, and I really like these thin sliced almonds. I don't know if you can see them very well, but they're super thin sliced. You can also get them slivered that are like in inch-long pieces, chunks. So I'm going to put these in place of the sunflower seeds. But either way is fine, and you can actually put both in if you want. So I'm going to dump those in. Stir it up a little bit, get it coated really nicely. Then let's put some in a bowl and see how pretty it is. Oh, you should have stopped me. You know what I forgot? The noodles that I beat to death. And the chicken flavor. That just goes to show you, it doesn't matter how seasoned a can or cook that you are. You can always make mistakes. So I'm putting the ramen noodles in now and stirring them in. And see, I could redo this whole segment and you'd never know I made a mistake. But this just goes to show we all make mistakes. So the chicken flavor goes in with the oil and the vinegar and the sugar and the black pepper. And now you know Dede makes mistakes all the time. So I'm going to put that in a bowl, some of it. And there's your salad. It's pretty, it smells good. If you're not a person who likes coleslaw with mayonnaise dressing, you may love this. The ramen noodles stay crunchy, so you have some crunch with it. You could put onions in this. You could put other vegetables in this if you want, but this is the easy short version, even with the mistake. So here's your bowl, shows you what you got. Give this recipe a try. Fun to share with friends, like for a dinner, for something different instead of a tossed salad. So the next thing I'm going to mention, but I'm not going to demonstrate it because it takes too long, that has to do with, again, coleslaw mix. So one of the recipes in here on the last page is coleslaw to can or freeze or fridge. This recipe is really neat. It, again, is another recipe that is can be a mayonnaise-free coleslaw. I have friends who wouldn't touch mayonnaise if you force them to. They don't like mayonnaise. But you can follow this recipe. You can can it in a boiling water bath. It's safe. It's a pickled cabbage. After you can it, you can eat it the way it is. You can drain it really, really well and mix mayonnaise in it, and it's delicious. Or you can make it, and you can pack it in containers and freeze it, like in portion sizes. It thaws out, and it's actually still crunchy. It's the craziest thing. Or the third option is you can make it, put it in the fridge, and you can eat from it for at least 2 weeks. It stays that good that long. And I wanted to include it because it was another way you could use coleslaw mix, this convenience package, and make something really delicious. Easy, inexpensive, nice way to, add to a dinner. The great thing to make, that or the ramen noodle salad, great thing to make if you have to go to like a covered dish dinner, or you're going to families, for dinner and you want to take something and contribute something. So anyway, I wanted to make sure you had that recipe as well. And if anybody tries it, let me know. It's really popular on my canning group. We really love having the option of having a form of cabbage in jars, because you can't can regular cabbage without pickling it. So anyway, that's where we're at, and I will bring you back shortly for the thing you've been waiting for, which is the dessert. Peanut butter fudge. See you in a minute. Okay, now for the fun part. The part that's always fun is the sugary part. So what you see here is all we need. It's the craziest, simplest recipe. Peanut butter fudge. It's in your packet. The recipe is in there. 1 can of vanilla frosting. Don't get the whipped or the cream cheese. Get just plain old regular vanilla frosting. 1 jar, 16 ounce peanut butter. I got creamy. You could actually use crunchy, and it's really good, but the recipe originally calls for creamy. Now, this is so hard. Not literally. You open them up, and you put them in a microwave safe container. Now, some of you may recognize this microwave bowl, because we gave them away for free. A few years ago at cooking class at Jackson's Mill, these were donated, and also there was a black one that was a ramen noodle size. Excuse me. And so these are great. So that's what I'm going to use. So you literally just take a spatula, spoon, whatever, dig this out of the can or jar. I like to kind of alternate it. And you're going to put all of this out of both containers into your microwave safe bowl. Just make sure whatever you put this in that you have room to stir. And this one just has enough room. So don't do anything smaller, or it just makes your job more difficult. And this is such an easy recipe, there's no point in making it more difficult. I've got about 2/3 of the peanut butter in there. I put some more of the frosting. And one of these rubber spatulas, bowl scrapers, some people call them, really works the best, so that you can really get in there and get every bit out. So that one's done. Garbage. And then the peanut butter is a little more difficult because it's more stiff. Make sure you have these at room temperature. If you've already taken the seal off your icing, for example, you don't want to keep this in the refrigerator right before you're going to make fudge. So, one more scoop, we should be able to get it out. Don't hesitate to ask somebody to help you with this if this is difficult for you, because it does take a little bit of dexterity, even for an old lady like me. All right, so we got it all in there. I'm just going to scrape this off, lay this on my old cutting board. Now, my microwave is about 15 feet from my stove. And rather than move the camera and make you seasick, I'm going to go ahead and stick it in there. We only microwave for 1 minute. Take it out, stir, put it back in, microwave 1 more minute. That's it. So I'm going to go over and pop it in the microwave, come back and talk to you while we're waiting for it to cook a minute. So while we're waiting, I wanted to tell you that you can find versions of this recipe online. You don't have to use peanut butter. You can use chocolate chips. You can use butterscotch chips. You can add nuts to it. It's very good soft fudge. It does harden up nicely in the fridge. It's not the fudge you may have grown up eating, which is the cooked kind that's very sugary. Some people made the kind that was really hard. You almost had to scrape, with your teeth when it was cold to eat it. So it's not the old-fashioned fudge, but it's delicious and easy. And it's another thing, if you remember when we did Scotcheroos last year, I talked about how it'd be nice to make those and cut them in squares and put them in a little box, tie a bow on it, and it'd be a really nice little gift to give to like your neighbor for Christmas or family. And this fudge is basically the same kind of thing. It's not expensive. You can find the icing at the dollar store, Dollar Tree. Same with the peanut butter, except it's in a smaller jar there. So you may need to go to a regular grocery store to get a bigger jar. But there's different things you can do with it. And our time's up. Hang on. Now I want to show you, it's interesting. The icing, if you see, is kind of liquidy. It gets hot before the peanut butter does. And when you first stir, I don't think I can make this where you can see it. When you first stir it, after the first cooking, that icing is real liquidy and the peanut butter still is kind of clumpy because it hasn't gotten very warm yet. So when you first start, you kind of have to, and I'll try to show you, you kind of have to like stir, pull up through, stir, and you want to stir kind of around the edges, back through the peanut butter. You don't need to mix it perfectly. In the end, we want to make sure that all we see is peanut butter color and the white's gone. But at this stage, the peanut butter is just getting melty. And if you see, we're getting a little more tan instead of white. So I don't get too concerned about it. I just try to get it mixed up fairly well. Back in the microwave for a minute. Hang on. So it's really versatile. It's coming up here soon in the next, about a month from now, when it gets close to holiday shopping time. Not necessarily holiday time yet, but holiday shopping time. There's going to be sales on things like chocolate chips and butterscotch chips and peanut butter chips, and even sometimes the icing goes on sale. So keep an eye out if you think you would like to do these fudges to give as gifts, and you can maybe find some of these things on sale even, and you can make these ahead. I don't see any problem with freezing them. You could freeze them in, a nice flat Tupperware type container and put them in the freezer and let them thaw in their fridge, and bring it out for a party, give some to your neighbors or your family, whatever. Super simple. So hang on, we're almost done, and I'm going to show you how you end this and what it looks like, because I made a pan ahead. All right, so now looks pretty soupy. See? So this icing part has gotten warmer. The peanut butter has now gotten nice and melty and is all mixing in. And I try to stir this enough that I don't see white streaks from the icing anymore. That pretty much the whole thing is evenly tan, like a light peanut butter color. Meaning that everything has mixed together really nicely. And if you can see that, that's what's happened, okay? So here's the really hard part. I have I think this is a 9-inch square pan, 8 or 9 inch works. And I just sprayed it lightly with some oil. You can also butter that. Put some butter on your fingers and just butter it. The whole idea is that you want this, once it's chilled, to be able to come out of the pan easy, okay? So you need to do something to the pan to grease it. Then all we're going to do, pour this in this pan. That's it. So can you see? I'm going to do this up high and be really careful so you can see. And I'm just going to scrape out as much as I can out of my microwave safe bowl. Oh, it smells so good. Now the bottom of this is a little hot, so you want to be careful depending on what kind of container you use to cook it in. Now the recipe says to smooth out the top, but honestly, I found that all I have to do is wiggle this pan, and it really, if you can see, it kind of smooths out on its own. You can even drop it a couple times, like on a cutting board or whatever. That helps bring bubbles up. That works really good, like when you're doing a cake mix too, and you pour it in the pan. If you pop it a few times, just whack it, whatever, it levels it out and it helps take the bubbles out. Now all I have to do is stick this in the refrigerator and let it chill. We're good to go. One thing though, if you have a refrigerator with glass shelves, make sure you put a pot holder or something on the shelf before you put the warm fudge pan in there. You don't want to crack your shelf, okay? So anyway, I think I've about taken up all my time. There's your fudge. It is delicious. It smells wonderful. What a nice treat. My granddaughter is very happy because we now have 2 pans of fudge in the house. So I'm sure it's not going to last long. But there it is. Please try this. If you don't make any other recipe off the recipe booklet, give this a shot just for fun to make yourself and whoever else is around a treat. So there it is. There's our cooking class pandemic chapter 2, and I hope everybody enjoyed it and found something that they would like to try. That's the whole idea. So I've enjoyed doing this for you, and I wish we were together, but we will be eventually. See you later, guys.